She stood on a stage with nothing but a mic and a spotlight, yet it felt like the whole world stopped breathing. Her voice didn't just rise, it lifted people. It carried something spiritual. People called her the Voice. But behind that heavenly sound lived a woman slowly drowning under expectations, addiction, heartbreak, and a fame too heavy for any human to carry. She sang like an angel, but her demons never stopped listening. This is the story of Whitney Houston, her brilliance, her battles, and the dangers of a world that loves talent more than it protects the person behind it. Long before she became a global icon, Whitney Houston was simply Nippy, a girl from Newark, New Jersey, born into a family where music wasn't a gift, it was a bloodline. Her mother, Cissy Houston, was a powerhouse gospel singer. Her cousins, Dionne Warwick and Dee Dee Warwick, both legends in their own right. Music was the family language. Whitney grew up in the pews of New Hope Baptist Church, listening to gospel harmonies shaking the walls. She watched her mother command the choir with pure authority, and every Sunday she studied, she absorbed, she mirrored. By age 11, Whitney was leading solos, surprising even seasoned musicians with how effortlessly she could lift a note and make it float. There was tone, there was control, but above all there was emotion, unfiltered emotion. Every voice teacher who heard her said the same thing. She doesn't sing the notes, she lives inside them. But Whitney wasn't just talented, she was surrounded by professionals who treated music like a sacred calling. Her mother drilled discipline into her. If you want to make it, you have to respect the craft. Whitney listened, and she grew. By her teen years, she was modeling, singing backup for her mother, and performing at small clubs. One night, while she was singing at the Sweetwater Club in New York, a man in the audience froze. His name was Clive Davis, CEO of Arista Records. He said the moment he heard her, he knew, this is a once-in-a-lifetime voice. He didn't discover a singer, he discovered a force of nature. Whitney signed with Arista at 19. When her debut album dropped in 1985, it didn't just succeed, it exploded. Songs like Saving All My Love for You, How Will I Know, Greatest Love of All, shot straight to #1. She became the first debut artist to have 3 #1 singles. People didn't just listen to Whitney, they worshipped her voice. Critics wrote that Whitney's vocal range didn't sound human. Her pitch was perfect. Her runs were effortless. Her high notes carried this clean, angelic clarity that no one could imitate. She became America's sweetheart almost overnight. But with fame came pressure, and with pressure came cracks. The music industry loved Whitney, but they didn't want her to be herself. They wanted her to be marketable. She was shaped into a polished, elegant, safe pop star, beautiful, controlled, smiling. Her record label avoided songs that leaned too far into R&B or soul. They wanted her universal. Translation: she had to appeal to white audiences. This put Whitney in a difficult place. Many black listeners started calling her too white or not black enough. At the Soul Train Awards, she was even booed by parts of the audience. Whitney felt the sting deeply. She once said, "I'm not white, I'm not trying to be, I'm just me." But the more she succeeded, the more she felt torn between worlds. To her label, she had to be perfect. To her community, she had to be authentic. To herself, she had no room left to breathe. This pressure didn't break her outright, but it planted seeds of pain, seeds that would grow in the shadows. If Whitney Houston was a star in the 80s, she became a celestial phenomenon in the 90s. In 1992, she starred in The Bodyguard with Kevin Costner. And she didn't just act, she delivered one of the greatest vocal performances in music history, I Will Always Love You. The song opened with that soft, trembling whisper, and then the chorus dropped, like lightning from the heavens. It became the best-selling single by a female artist in history. From that moment, Whitney was more than a singer. She was a cultural monument, but behind the spotlight was a storm waiting to break. Whitney met Bobby Brown at the 1989 Soul Train Awards. Their energies collided instantly. Fire meeting fire. They were opposites. Whitney, polished, angelic, America's good girl. Bobby, rebellious, unpredictable, the bad boy of R&B. People said she should stay away. She didn't listen. They genuinely loved each other. They laughed, they played, they were real together in ways the industry never allowed her to be. But two wounded souls can't fix each other, and both were carrying demons. Their marriage became a battlefield, filled with passion, arguments, reconciliations, and an increasingly dangerous presence: drugs. Whitney had already experimented before Bobby, but together the habit grew into an addiction powerful enough to eclipse her music, her health, and her identity. The world didn't know yet, but the cracks were spreading. Despite the chaos, Whitney kept performing. But on stage she wasn't the same. Her once flawless voice began to strain. Her breath control faltered. Notes she used to float through now required a fight. Concerts were canceled, tours fell apart, fans saw glimpses of the decline, and the tabloids were merciless. Whitney, the woman who carried herself with grace and elegance, was suddenly painted as unstable, lost, irresponsible. The pressure of maintaining her image became suffocating. She once admitted, "The biggest devil is me. I'm either my best friend or my worst enemy." Behind the scenes, those close to her tried to help. But addiction doesn't care about love. It eats everything. Beyond the drugs, Whitney carried emotional wounds that few understood. Rumors, pressure, judgment, everything piled on her. She struggled with self-worth, the expectations of fame, and the endless noise from the world telling her who she should be. Even her family relationships were tangled with control, money, and complicated emotions. All Whitney wanted was peace. But peace was the one thing she could never hold on to. She said in an interview, "I look for love in the wrong places, maybe because I didn't find it enough in myself." Somewhere inside her, a soft, quiet voice was begging to be heard, but the world was too loud. In 1993, Whitney gave birth to Bobby Christina, her only child. Whitney adored her daughter. She wanted to be the mother she never had, a protector, a friend, a safe place. But addiction doesn't pause for motherhood. Growing up in a household filled with instability, arguments, and dependency left Bobby Christina with scars she never fully healed from. She loved her mother fiercely, but she saw everything. The weight of that pain would eventually swallow her too, years later. In the 2000s, Whitney's public image unraveled. Her voice cracked during performances. Her weight fluctuated. Her interviews became concerning. She admitted to heavy drug use. Fans whispered that the voice was gone. Her 2002 interview with Diane Sawyer exposed a vulnerable, wounded Whitney trying to defend herself against the world's judgment. People laughed at quotes like, "Crack is whack," but behind the memes was a woman begging not to be destroyed by her own fame. At one point, producers canceled concerts because Whitney couldn't talk, let alone sing. Her cousin Dionne Warwick once said, "Fame can kill you if you're not anchored." And Whitney lost her anchor. The world had fallen in love with her gift. It forgot about the human carrying it. In 2009, Whitney tried to rise again. She released the album I Look to You, which debuted at #1. Her fans were hopeful. Whitney seemed ready to reclaim herself, but her voice was no longer what it used to be. The years of addiction had damaged her lungs, her vocal cords, and her breath support. During her 2010 tour, she struggled through concerts, visibly exhausted, missing notes that once came effortlessly. Yet one thing about Whitney never changed: her ability to express emotion. Even in her weaker years, she could still move people. Because Whitney wasn't great simply because of technique. She was great because she sang from her soul. By 2011 and early 2012, Whitney was trying, truly trying, to stay clean. Some days she succeeded. Other days she slipped. But there were moments when she looked hopeful, laughing, singing in small bursts with friends, talking about future projects. On February 11, 2012, She was in Los Angeles for a pre-Grammy event. She spent the morning preparing for the evening. That afternoon, she took a bath. Hours later, she was found unresponsive in the tub. The world lost one of the greatest voices it had ever known. She was only 48. The official cause: accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine use listed as contributing factors. The news hit like a tidal wave. People cried in streets, online, outside her hotel, because Whitney wasn't just a singer. She was memory, nostalgia, emotion. She was part of people's lives. Whitney Houston's story didn't end in that hotel room. Her influence still echoes everywhere. Every singer trying to hit a clean high note, every vocalist attempting a run, every national anthem compared to hers, every power ballad inspired by her emotional style. Artists like Beyoncé, Mariah Carey, Ariana Grande, Jennifer Hudson, and countless others credit Whitney as their blueprint, their inspiration. But her legacy is more than technique. Whitney taught the world that a voice can be a prayer, that a song can be a confession, that talent alone doesn't protect anyone from pain, that fame can lift you up and destroy you. She showed us the cost of being extraordinary in a world that treats extraordinary people like machines. And even through it all, Whitney's heart never hardened. Friends say she always stayed kind, always generous, always searching for peace. They say she laughed easily, loved deeply, and prayed constantly. Whitney didn't lose to her demons. She battled them every single day. And even when she stumbled, her gifts never stopped blessing the world. Strip away the fame, and Whitney was a girl who wanted simple things: love, family, freedom, peace. A place where she didn't have to be perfect. People who knew her said she was playful, warm, and surprisingly shy. She loved to joke around, dance in socks, cook for friends, and sit quietly listening to gospel music. She wasn't just Whitney Houston. She was Nippy, a woman who spent her whole life giving the world joy, even when she couldn't find enough for herself. Whitney Houston once said, "God gave me a voice to sing, and when you have that, what other gimmick is there?" No matter how much the world criticized her, no matter how much she struggled, no matter how tragically her story ended, her voice still rises. In stadiums, in headphones, in memory, in every artist she inspired, in every soul she touched. Whitney Houston didn't just touch heaven with her voice. She brought a piece of heaven down for the rest of us. Her life was messy, her battles were real, her fall was heartbreaking, but her gift was eternal. And maybe, just maybe, that's how angels live on.